Okay. Commissioners, again, thank you. Larry Johnson, President, Coalition for Nevada's Wildlife. Want to give a short presentation today regarding a proposed special land designation on BLM lands. Those of us who have been involved in land planning process and administration of our public lands have often been perplexed by special land designations, particularly wilderness designation, that kind of ties the hands of wildlife managers. Clint and I have been wrestling with BLM over a number of issues. Clint with helicopter access for inventory repair of guzzlers. I up north with the inability to build guzzlers in wilderness areas, although they were in the range management plan of BLM approved before wilderness designation. So we've got these issues. We've got these issues of not being able to fight fire with mechanized equipment. We've got these issues of not being able to reseed wildfires with drill seeds, kind of on and on. We have heartburn, with wilderness management, not with wilderness itself, wild places itself. I think we love wild places, and wildlife depend on those wild places. At the same time, we've got areas, key wildlife areas in the state that are very susceptible to destruction by development. And I point out Mount Wilson area in Lincoln County. At the moment, we have the Poweraws, the Virginia Mountains, et cetera, in the North China Mountain that are proposed for wind power developments that, again, would be devastating to what pockets of remaining wildlife habitat we have. So I've often said, probably for the last decade, that what we need is an intermediate designation, something that provides wildlife protection of wild areas, but at the same time allows normal multiple use processes to continue, allows access to continue, allows wildlife management activities to continue. So I was contacted a few months ago by the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership with a proposal that was discussed with the Secretary of Interior. We put together a white paper to the Secretary, and following that, we met with the Deputy Secretary of Interior, David Hayes. Our proposal was met with enthusiasm, and we were asked to drum up sportsman support. And so that's the purpose of the presentation today. Much of the reason sportsmen continue to experience high-quality hunting and fishing on public lands is because of the backcountry lands administered by the BLM. Unfragmented backcountry offers key habitat to numerous fish and wildlife species, including those enjoyed by the public, such as wild trout and salmon, upland game, mule deer, elk, pronghorn, and wild sheep. These lands also contribute to America's $821 billion outdoor recreation-based economy. Despite their importance, however, these places and resources they sustain are facing mounting development pressures across the West. Sportsmen want to see a mid-ground conservation designation that conserves unfragmented fish and wildlife habitat and hunting and fishing while allowing reasonable exceptions that benefit our pastimes and the American public. Such designations will also ensure that the BLM is meeting its obligation under Executive Order 13443, Facilitation of Hunting, Heritage, and Wildlife Conservation. This process that we are proposing, we've referred to it as the sportsman's backcountry solution. It would be developed through the standard range management planning process. So it comes from the ground up, comes from the locals up. rather than a top-down designation. So everybody has their input into it. BLM at the present time in their RMPs are asked to identify any blocks of 5,000 acres or more. That's the present requirements in their BLM handbook that have wildlife importance benefit. We would simply ask that in that range management planning process that these areas receive, after local input and due consideration, a special protection for wildlife. This designation should incorporate the following management principles. This designation will conserve specific unfragmented BLM backcountry areas with high-quality fish and wildlife habitat and/or significant sporting opportunities. Designated areas will remain open to public hunting, fishing, trapping. State and fish and wildlife agencies will retain management authority over fish and wildlife populations. This designation will safeguard existing motorized routes that are important for sportsmen to access backcountry areas for hunting and fishing. Let's make it very clear. Existing roads are going to stay open. It would prevent the construction of new roads and protect these areas from the pioneering of ATVs, new trails, and so forth. The construction of new roads, motorized trails, and linear disturbances within designated backcountry areas will be restricted to safeguard unfragmented habitat. Vegetation and water projects that improve fish and wildlife habitat, control noxious weeds, and reduce the risk of wildfire be allowed, including prescribed burnings and the installation and maintenance of water guzzlers. Chainsaws, game carts, helicopters, mechanical devices will be allowed within the designated areas. Vegetation management without conservation purposes. That's the polite version of logging. Utility corridors, surface occupancy associated with energy development will be prohibited within the designated areas. So we're not going to have wind farms, solar farms. We're not going to have power lines, gas lines. We're not going to do logging. This designation will not affect valid existing rights, including public land grazing allotments or the ability of ranchers to maintain agricultural improvements. That was my insistence in here because we need to make sure that our ranching is protected on our public lands, and quite frankly, ranching and wildlife management go hand in hand, quite frankly, if done properly. So this is a proposal. We've thrown up a slide here of the Wilson Creek wind project that I think pretty much everybody is very familiar with, and would have devastated one of the major, if not the best, sage-grouse, elk, and mule deer nurseries in the southeast part of the state. This designation in the Lincoln County Land Bill, first of all, due to local input, wilderness designation was not pursued in that particular area. And I believe that was the correct decision. But at the same time, 10 years later, we come back and go, damn, I wish we'd have put that in wilderness because it would have prevented this, and which would be the absolute worst thing that could happen to our wildlife resources in that county. This particular land designation, again, which would come up through the local process, through the range management planning process, would prevent this, not affecting ranching, not affecting hunting, would allow habitat improvements, would allow all of the things that we really push for in wilderness in the first place, but at the same time protects it from development. And that, quite frankly, is kind of a 25 words or less summary. Eric Petlock is with the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership, and Eric and I are going to be on a road show to all the county game boards around the state, trying to enlist support for this. Our national delegation, of course, has been enlisted in this, and so far, pretty much everybody we've talked to is in pretty enthusiastic support of it. So, any questions? Mike?
Yeah, I have a question right off the bat. Beg pardon?
I said Mr. Chairman.
Oh, that's all right. Mike's fine. The immediate question I have is that you talk about this being coming up, from the grassroots level through the BLM's resource management planning process, but does it end up in Congress where a special land designation occurs? Because that's the title of what your agenda item here is that there's a special land designation. Is it solely in the resource management plan, which obviously could be amended and changed and done away with? The winds that blow at the BLM, could affect change, or is it a grassroots project that comes up through that resource management plan, but eventually ends up with statutory change that basically puts some teeth in a designation that will last, at least until a statutory change?
Our initial plan was to bring this up through, have it included in the BLM workbook, essentially, that would have every range management plan amendment would consider this within their management area. While there is no definite plan right now to have this a congressional effort for permanent, that could be possible, but quite frankly, that's not in our planning mode at the present time. I think the RMP that's up for revision right now is in the Battle Mountain District, and that's probably where we want to start the emphasis. But again, I want to inform everybody statewide, and like I said, we're going to do a little traveling road show here to try to get people up to speed and garner support for this thing.
Okay, Commissioner Rain.
Thank you. About the implementation of this, not so much the substance. I mean, okay, so we all come up with something everybody agrees on. Then how will it be implemented? I mean, I'm struggling with that process of how you see this being implemented by the BLM,
yes,
by the Forest Service, perhaps. The mechanism. Okay, we all agree. Great. How can we help you? What do you want?
Well, I think
get implemented.
I think it would be implemented identical to every other provision in an RMP. Whether it be a grazing plan, whether it be habitat restoration, whether it makes room for a bighorn sheep reintroduction, all of those items are covered and implemented through BLM following the adoption of that RMP. It would be federal land, it's their jurisdiction. They would administer and implement those requirements. For instance, no road building. Once this is designated, anyone requiring or requesting construction of new roads, and let's jump right to an exemption. Mining. 1872 mining law trumps everything. If a mining company has an economic deposit in one of these areas, they have the ability to stake claims and mine. They would probably be held to a higher level of mitigation because it is high quality wildlife habitat and so designated. Okay? So they may have a higher level of mitigation. But mining, quite frankly, the mining law trumps everything. And until that law, if it is ever amended, it remains.
So basically, just so everybody maybe understands what you're saying, is that each BLM is divided into districts, and each district has a resource management plan, and that resource management plan guides the BLM in that district as to what they're doing, and it's a process that goes through the NEPA process, right?
Absolutely.
And so there's public comment, and there's the ability to try to affect change to the resource management plan, and they do this, I think, every 5 years, something along those, or maybe there's no set period, but they seem to make changes.
Probably 10 years.
Yeah, 5, 10 years, or 10 years. Okay, so it doesn't happen that often. So the ability to get input and make changes in resource management plans doesn't come along all the time, and so anyway, so that. I don't know if everybody really understands the resource management planning process and how that works.
That is probably a good summary in that it has public input. I know the ranchers obviously are heavily involved in that. Sportsmen probably are becoming more involved in that process all of the time because of it impacts us significantly. More people, more of the public needs to be involved in that process.
Okay, any other? Commissioner Drew, go ahead.
Just kind of a comment, Larry, and then a question for you. I think the proposal that you guys have has a lot of merit. I like where it's going. I think some RMPs, including Winnemucca, are kind of headed in that direction already. So to codify it under some designation probably makes some sense. And then the question for you guys is, have you talked with state and district level BLM folks? And if not, I might recommend that.
Yes, we've had just preliminary discussions with the state level. Obviously, we're just getting off the ground here and need to have more in depth. The other, and I'm sorry, what was your first comment? That
primarily just that I thought the route you're going has some merit, and then the only question I really had for you is what level of coordination you'd had with BLM at this point.
We've had probably more coordination with BLM at the national level than we have at the local level, and again, hopefully this is something Department of Wildlife and the Commission can support in the future. Certainly haven't brought it forward as an action item, but we may be back to you sometime in the future, depending on our reception around the state. Okay. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this was just informational, so no public comment. But any other commissioners have any questions or comments with regard to this? Okay, seeing none, what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and break for lunch now. Come on up, Glenn.
Glenn Bunch, Mineral County. A couple of things I'll try to get with Larry during the break, but...
Okay, were you going to there's no public comment on that agenda item, and so I didn't want to open up the floodgates and with regard to that. So is that, were you going to be talking about what Larry just talked about?
I was going to give him some information, but yeah, and you at the same time, but I can meet with him.
I mean, you can do that without having any comment, but I'd rather not stick to my rules. Okay, thanks, Glenn. I appreciate it. Okay, then let's go ahead and break for lunch. We've talked about 45 minutes, so it's about 10 till noon right now, and so let's reconvene at 12:35.
Mr. Chairman.